coming up now.
Oh, that's good. So, our many listeners, most of the people who tune into the streams watch it afterwards, don't they?
Yes, they do. Well, we get a few people dipping in and out. Not many, but then we get these afterwards.
Probably dip in until Ted is finished, and then dip out. I would say that's
quite
most
possibly.
likely.
Yeah.
and then you always finish up, Paul, by inviting more on to give us the most important element of the show for the week.
The last part of the show is always the best.
You always embarrass me by saying that.
Well, if you want to hold on to your viewers who are getting tired, you have to tell them that the last part is the one that really is the best part. So don't hang up yet, guys.
I see.
Yeah, don't. And I should show you the post bag I got this week, Paul, from my contribution last week. The postman had to struggle up the steps with them.
That's special, you know. But you deserve it. I mean, you are really the voice of the show.
Well, interesting. Oh, you should make that point. Just listen to Simon Sinek on the offering we're going to be giving this week. He says some very wise things.
I've often wondered how many people who are members of Toastmasters, what is it, 365,000 members or something, 1,000 for each day of the year or something like that.
Nice to remember.
I wonder how many of them would be able to spell his name, Sinek.
Yes.
S-I-N-E-K, simple enough.
Well, yes, Ted.
Oh, you're such a good straight man.
Or is it the Simon bit you're worried about?
Well, that's one of the best one-liners I've heard. I mean,
I hope you weren't starting with a C to make it sound like cyanide.
Okay, so who's ever heard of him? Then put it another way.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
You know, who's ever heard of this guy who you happen to be in love with?
Well, I'm not in love with him, but I think he gives us some very good advice.
Well, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Oh, it is actually, yeah. Why is the way.
Well, anyway, folks.
It certainly influenced me a lot in terms of copywriting websites.
That's good.
You know, when you want to... And I remember linking it up with the Apple to 1984... what do you call it? Not the Rose Bowl. What's it called? The big final that everybody watches in the United States, where Apple did an advert, which was about a whole load of people marching, almost like the revolution, and they were marching to overcome IBM, and you know, it was the most radical corporate advertisement that had ever been made, I think. And some of the Apple board had just gone, oh, we can't stand it. It's the worst thing that's ever been made.
Yeah.
There's a great story behind it. So, but that was very much not about what you could do with your Apple equipment, but it was, you know, what kind of a person were you? You know, what was your why?
Yeah.
That drove you on, and we're all part of the one army, and we're against the dominant power of the great story of Apple.
Yeah, well, you tied it in nicely with 1984 there.
Well, that's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. Go, Ted, you're the first person who's made that link in my hearing.
Well, that's interesting, because I something happened to me yesterday. I was down having a pint, and I was reading a book, and I got, Mara, you will have received this as well.
Yeah.
I got a little text or a WhatsApp from one of our colleagues in another Toastmasters club saying that today at 20.
That was on the 20th, which is
at
3 days ago. 2020, 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see my response?
Yes. Yes,
It was
I
only
did.
2 days too late.
I know.
Yesterday was the 22nd.
Yeah. But it's a pity we missed it, because I would have. That's the sort of thing I like to
Pity we
celebrate.
missed it because it only happens once in history.
Well, that one will only happen. Next one will be in 2021. Oh no, it won't. It'll be 21-21 the next time. Then 21-21, 21-21-21.
Right. Okay. That'll
Can
be
somebody
September
explain
next
to me where the 20 comes from? I know
Okay.
the 20th.
In
20 minutes and 20 seconds.
No, first of all,
past 8 on the 20th of 2020.
20th of
July.
No, yeah, that's cheating, isn't it? Because you're dropping the July bit.
That's
Yeah,
what
but
I thought.
No, it was 20 minutes and 20 seconds
Yes.
past 8 o'clock on 2020. Didn't have to be July at all. It was just.
Well, no, it's the
day.
20th. It was the 20th.
The hour, the second on the 2020.
Ted, it was also the date, the 20th.
Yes, that's right.
But it's cheating
Okay,
because
guys.
Nothing about July.
it missed off July, exactly. Right, are we ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
Okay, well, it just so happens that for once I'm ahead of the game and
Well done, Moira.
we're all ready to rock. So, a needle pulling thread. Oh, let's do this properly. Yeah, silly girl. Stop what you're doing. Thank you. And redo that. Sorry, I just did a silly. Okay, here we go. I wasn't quite as ready as I thought. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters listeners and friends. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers on irishtalkers.com. Our email address is info@irishtalkers.com. You can also find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. And we look forward to your comments and your mailbags that come into us every week. We look forward to it. We thrive on your questions and feedback. We regard these as your evaluations. You can also listen to previous shows on our website, irishtalkers.com. And we also publish the Public Speaking Weekly. This is a roundup of links from the internet, all about Toastmasters, public speaking, confidence, leadership. So look out for the newspaper link on our website. My name is Ted, and I'm joined again this week by the persuasive and passionate Paul.
Welcome, listeners. I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to be listened to you by again this week.
And we're also joined, as we are most weeks, by the multi-talented, motivating and mindful Moira.
And definitely multitasking, Ted. Because I'm trying
Moira
to...
has about 50 other things that she has to do as well as talking to us on this show.
That's right. But I do my best, Ted.
Can I ask that Moira cuts out all of the things except one and does one thing properly, please?
Okay, fair enough.
Then you see that the live stream would be very boring.
That's true too, Mara. You're so right. And on today's show, we will have the usual mix of what we have every week. I will be giving you a thought for the week. Paul will be giving us a word of the week that I'm sure is going to be, it's not going to be one of those one-syllable ones that he was so in love with for quite a while. Mara will be giving us a topic on speeches without sound, if you could have such a thing.
I'm not quite, Ted, but the word sound does come into it somewhere.
Good, excellent. And well, I know that it's the importance of sound, Mara. I'll just flag that now for people so that they will still remain with us on Monday.
Well,
this show comes to in 4 segments.
But in fact,
spread it out a bit.
Paul is talking about a very important subject, which is TLI.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this too. That should be very good.
Now, why are you not asking me, what on earth is TLI?
Oh, I thought you said Theo.
Let's move on. That can wait. Be revealed later.
Okay, I'm going to give you the thought for the week, and I hope, Paul, you will be giving us the word for the week, which I know you will. Don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Go where the expectations and demands to perform are high. So don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. So you should go where the expectations and the demands to perform are high. And that was given to us by the late, great Jim Rohan. Comments, Moira and Paul?
Well, Ted.
This Moira, go on.
No, Paul, after you. Age before beauty.
This is a very challenging journey to go on. To me, it implies that if you're in a nice, friendly, warm, cuddly group, which is giving you lots of enjoyable, gregarious, friendly, sociable stuff, that you should leave, that you should go away from that comfortable group and go into a group where you will find yourself in company which will encourage you to go for higher goals, to go make more of an effort, to use your talents and your skills. And that is a very challenging thing. How long do you stay in your comfort zone, non-developmental zone, as opposed to your discomfort zone, your developmental zone? I don't know. It's up to the listeners, I guess.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what is being employed here, Paul. That if you join a group and you have your friends surrounding you, they very rarely give you the feedback that you need in particular to grow. You need to have honest, accurate, and without all the frills. Sometimes we have to be given that. We have to be told at times that what we're doing is probably not right, or it's not right in the other person's point of view. So it's good to have people who will give it to you honestly and as accurately as they possibly can. Sorry, Maura, I jumped in ahead of you there.
No, it's quite all right, Ted, because I was thinking slightly differently to Paul. You see, we do take life in a way that is easy for us. And that's quite natural. You know, we don't want to stretch ourselves all the time. But for when you do want to stretch yourself, then yeah, don't join the easy crowd. Look for places where you are going to be stretched, where demands are going to be made of you. Because then when demands are made of you, you are going to be digging deeper into yourself and you are going to be growing.
Yes, that's it.
I think this is quite a dangerous sentence to take seriously, though, in the context of Toastmasters. And I wouldn't want to discuss it very much in public. And thank goodness we don't have all that many listeners. And the people who do listen to this show are a very special type of early adopters of new ideas. But if you take it this much, imagine that you're a member of a very friendly Toastmasters club, and you've been a member of that friendly, supportive, enjoyable, easygoing, very relaxed club. And you've been in that club for 5 years, and you love going out to meet with the other people, having a cup of tea in the middle. I don't want to over-egg it. Jim Rohn is suggesting you leave that club and go to another club where you're going to experience more developmental evaluations, where you're going to see speakers who are making a greater effort to prepare their speeches, and where for sake of argument, the Toastmasters promise is more enthusiastically applied. Like, for example, They do all of their speeches according to the current educational program, and they bring guests to the meetings. And they're not a small group of people who've got very comfortable in each other's company. I think this is much too dangerous to discuss on the show, Ted.
Now, Paul, I know you always treat these things slightly askance, but let me point out to you that you have recently joined a club, which is an advanced Toastmasters club. Why did you join that club? Was it to be comfortable, or was it to stretch yourself?
Look, I am congenitally condemned to stretch myself. I am never satisfied. That's probably why you were happy to have me on the show, because I'm always disgruntled. But I joined that club because, first of all, I'd never joined an online club before, and I wanted the experience of joining a 100% online club. I went to the meeting and I discovered that they were all making a real serious effort, and there were some serious cookies in the club. And I heard evaluations that I went, oh, right, I better do a good evaluation when it comes to my turn. And I thought, this is not like the lovely club I'm a member of where everyone is my friend. These people are rigorous. They might get me to change.
I think they will, Paul. And I can tell you...
What I would just like to add to that, Paul, that all too often the significant people in your circle of influence, such as your members in your Toastmasters club, sometimes they just are too nice and they eschew any attempt to give you feedback of a negative nature. Sure, they might say it behind your back, but rarely to your face. These are all missed opportunities for growth, because feedback is veritably the breakfast of champions. You need assertive people like your boss inside in work who will be able to call you out on your attitude, your behaviours and your actions. By giving you the fluffy, stuffy stuff all the time, you're not going to grow.
Well, Ted, with people like you in our club, the grammarians are really... I mean, I've heard so many wonderful phrases in your last contribution that I'm blown away, especially that fluffy duffy one.
That's where that came from.
I thought that really woke me up.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
But I think you've said it there, Ted. I think you've said it. I just hope that nobody in any club I've been a member of ever listens to it.
Oh, I see. Well, I know what I was saying is that you should be joining the club where you think you will be held to account and that you will be told things, particularly in your evaluations, so that you can take them away, think about them, work on them and improve. And that's how we all improve. That's how we all gain that self-development that we need.
Here's one last question on this topic. Is there any way somebody might understand what you've just said, Ted, as implied advice to join a club, stay in it for 1 year, in order to prevent yourself getting too comfortable in that club, move to another club the following year, and every year join a different club?
Not at all. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm suggesting is that what we have to do is we have to make sure that the evaluations we give and the evaluations we get are worthy of us being able to grow.
Well, can I go on now to give you a word that would describe a lot of Toastmasters clubs?
Please do.
A lot of Toastmasters clubs are places where people are gregarious. 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 One of the most interesting things about the English language is how some words begin being applied to animals and then gradually, a bit like a century later, or perhaps 60 years later, are then applied to human beings. And this is one of these words, because it came from a one-syllabled word. I'm referring back now to Ted's thing, called Grex. Grex. And Grex is a word that means a flock or a herd. I think it comes from Latin. And of course, flocks of geese and herds of cows would have been in the 17th century. That's right, in the 1640s. The word would have been used to talk about a herd of cows. The cows are gregarious, the geese are gregarious. Then, 100 years later, referred to human beings. The fascinating thing about the word gregarious, which means being sociable, enjoying the company of others, it refers to those kind of things, those friendly, interactive. It's not just being around other people. Is that the timer? Is that our timer?
I don't know what that is.
All right.
It might as well be. But apparently there are a whole clutch of words in English which come from this word grex, including egregious. And I never knew that egregious and gregarious had anything in common with each other, but I've done my research. So there we are, to flock together. Toastmasters clubs are places where you are almost certainly going to be gregarious. And even when you go around the world online, it's fair enough to say that it's a gregarious experience.
More extroverts than introverts, Paul, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying really that Toastmasters is a flock or a herd. And that cleaves together and actually is bound together by a lot of commonality, to be fair, joking apart.
Which is, of course, yeah.
I don't think it would be fair to say, here comes a flock of Toastmasters, although...
Nice one, yeah. I like it.
Nice one, Paul. I like the word. But I'm sure I like all your words, Paul.
And I think on that egregious word, we should come to a close on this particular segment, and we'll invite you to come back tomorrow to listen to the audio from just a 10-minute audio from a very great speaker and a philosopher, I guess you would call him, Simon.
Yeah, he is actually a thought leader. Yeah,
yeah, Simon Sinek. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Same time tomorrow. I wasn't paying any attention to the time, so way over, of course.
Which was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And there were some very relevant points made that would tie in nicely with Toastmasters.
Indeed. Indeed.
I think especially the first part where, you know, it was... yeah,
it was good.
I think you made some very powerful points there, Ted.
Thank you, Paul.
If somebody was to lift them out and transcribe them, you'd have one of these soapbox speeches for Blarney, Ted.
Thanks very much. I must look back on this and have a look at what I did say and listen to what I said.
Yeah. It's always good.
This is something that has always happened on the talk show for talkers. The inspiration seems to bounce off the walls. Did you ever notice that?
Absolutely.
I've never called you a wall, Ted.
No, but when you listen back to it, Paul, you'll be saying to yourself some days, geez, I can't believe, where did I find that? Where did that come from? Where did that thought come from, or that inspiration?
Well, it's all tabletop, isn't it, Ted?
It proves one thing that I've experienced, and I'll bet you two have experienced it. When you create an atmosphere within which people build on top of each other, rather than contradict each other. And I think for the most part, we do that.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with you, yeah.
Okay, on the way, we sometimes pause and have a little fight, but we keep building. And that means that we each then find ourselves in a situation where things that bubble up within us can be let out, and we don't have to censor them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mark asked me earlier, what do I do for a relaxation? Well, this is what I do every Thursday at this time, and I regard this as relaxation because it's a nice little challenge where we can have these little mini debates as well that you might regard to as having fights, but there's nothing pugilistic about it. It's all just stretching the grey matter and your own minds, our own minds, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Ted, what's happened to you this week?
I might have had too much sun, Paul.
Pugilistic. I mean,
I like your work.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, the grammarians who are listening to this are going, "Oh my God, what does that mean? We got to put that on our word of the week next week."
Yeah, that's true, because you used the word fight, so I said I'd give it a different flavour.
Well, and what about the ones who have said fluffy duffy? Got to have that one in.
Well, that was a fantastic one. That's pure Ted Malamphy.
There we are, a TED Talk again.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm calling this particular chatter to a close, except now
So I'm going to introduce Simon, so...
my background program, that's better. Yep, okay, Ted. Let me bring you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Toastmasters, to the second segment of the talk show for talkers for this week. And I'm going to introduce one of our friends. He's been on this show on many occasions, not in the flesh and blood, because we're in this particular time of COVID. Everything is being done through the different cyber platforms. The one that we're on is Zoom at the moment. And Simon Sinek is going to lend us his voice, and he is going to give us the most honest 10-minute speech that you will ever listen to. You can also catch us on YouTube. So listen to Simon Sinek. That's SIMON SINEK. He's a thought leader, he's a philosopher, and he's a friend of the talk show for talkers.
Okay. Right. Paul, have you
I
listened?
hope we're going to listen to it.
We are.
I haven't heard it.
We are indeed.
Well,
we're about to listen.
It's 10 minutes and 41 seconds talk show for talk. I think. Do you want to listen to it all the way through? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We are players in multiple infinite games every day of our lives. There's no such thing as being the winner in your marriage, There's no such thing as winning global politics, and there's definitely no such thing as winning business. Business is an infinite game. And yet, when we listen to the language of too many leaders, they talk about being number one, being the best, and beating their competition. Based on what? There's no agreed upon objectives, there's no agreed upon timeframes. And so what ends up happening is you have people building organizations and leading with a finite mindset, playing to win, in a game where there's no such thing as winning. And when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, there's a few very predictable and consistent outcomes, amongst which include decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, the decline of innovation, all of which contribute to the eventual demise of the organization itself. People start business with the goal of winning or being number one, and that's a problem because that's impossible. I've never met a CEO that doesn't believe their people are important. The problem is where on the priority list. Been to any number of presentations where they put their priorities on the wall, number one, growth, number two, shareholder value, number three, our customer, number four, our employees. There it is. See, I do care about our people. And the reality is, as social animals, we want to work for and we're willing to give our blood, sweat, and tears to leaders who understand that the balance of those two essential currencies, the balance of those two things has to come before resources. Over the course of the 80s and 90s, we've seen systems produced where we're seeing the general population, the middle class, actually be less included in that success. And the reason I wrote The Infinite Game was because I myself got tired of being told by people in positions of authority or people of extreme wealth that I was naive, that I don't understand how business works. And for many years, I believed them. I thought, maybe I am the dumb one, right? We all kind of feel that. Because they have the power, they have the authority, they have the money, they know more than we do. But we still go to work and feel uncomfortable. And it turns out that discomfort, that gut feeling, there's something wrong here, turns out the majority actually knows something. And to me, this is a world is flat moment, that the people who've learned to game the system, that this discomfort that we feel, we actually are right. They actually don't understand the game they're in. Business is an infinite game, and when you play with a finite mindset, lots of people suffer, including the companies that they themselves are trying to build. That's the great irony. The great irony is the way you build great companies is with an infinite mindset. The way you build great companies is by prioritizing people before profit. The way you build great companies is will before resources. Both things important, but there has to be this general leaning where we can feel, when we come to work and feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves, where we feel that our work and our effort is worth more than simply the money we make. You know, running a business is the same as getting healthy. It's a lifestyle. Leadership is a lifestyle. An infinite mindset is a lifestyle. So for example, you can't get healthy by going to the gym for 9 hours. It doesn't work. But if you go every single day for 20 minutes, you'll absolutely get into shape, 100%. But I don't know when, and it's different times for different people. And leading is the same thing. You can absolutely have fitness goals. You can absolutely have finite goals within the infinite context of being healthy. But there's a practice that you have to do. You have to get enough sleep. You have to go to the gym. You have to eat well. You have to protect your relationships, you know, because healthy relationships really matter to our health. And you have to do all those things vigilantly. And if you miss your health goal, it's okay. You keep working at it and you know you will hit it. Business is the same. Who says that you have to meet this goal on this arbitrary date? Now, it helps to drive and it's good to have incentives and we're very goal-oriented species. That's fine. But if we miss the thing, it's fine. We just keep working towards it. Like, they're guidance. They're not absolutes because they're arbitrary dates and arbitrary numbers. And even if you do hit your fitness goal, you don't get to stop working out. You have to keep going for the rest of your life. Well, we're not all Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. We're not all visionaries. We don't have to have a vision, but we do have to find a vision, that we can find someone else's vision. And we are so compelled by it that we want to make it our own. Martin Luther King had a vision. He stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and told us his vision, but his vision became our vision. So I may not have come up with that vision, but I found it, and I'd like to devote time and energy to help advance it, even beyond him. We have to give our people a just cause. We have to have trusting teams. We have to create environments inside our organizations in which people feel psychologically safe, safe enough to raise their hands and say, I made a mistake or I need help. The absence of trusting teams means we have groups of people lying, hiding, and faking. And that comes from good old-fashioned leadership. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. And the very responsibility of a leader is not to drive performance. Leaders are not responsible for the results. Leaders are responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And the problem is we don't teach people how to lead. When you're very, very junior, we give people tons of training how to do their jobs. Some people get advanced degrees how to do their jobs so that they'll be good at them. And if you're really good at your job, we'll promote you. And eventually you get promoted to a position where you're now responsible for the people who do the job you used to do, and we don't teach you how to do that. So how can we expect people to be good at their jobs if we don't train them how to do it? Like, would you go see a doctor that didn't go to medical school? No. So why would we work for a leader who has no training in being a leader? That's why we get toxicity. It's not because they're bad people, it's because they don't know what they're doing. And they're making it up as they go along. And those lucky times that we get to work for a great leader, well, they were lucky that they probably had a great leader before them, or they learned it somewhere else, or maybe they had a terrible leader and they committed to do the total opposite of everything. The point is, they learned it. Well, we have to teach leadership so that leaders can create environments in which all of us can work to our natural best. That produces trusting teams. What does it mean to be healthy? You're asking me the question, what does it mean to be a great parent? Like, I don't have 5 things to be a great parent. It's a lifestyle. And it comes number one with the commitment that I'm responsible for the life of another human being, the growth of another human being. The closest thing to leadership is parenting. You have to be an infinite student of parenting. You know, you want to be a parent, you ask your friends, you ask your own parents, you join groups, you read magazines, you watch talks, whatever it is, you're constantly consuming how to deal with this constantly changing challenge of being a parent. And it's ups and downs and successes and failures, you know, and that's what it is. Leadership is the same. Leaders, great leaders are students of leadership. No matter how achieved they may be, they're still learning. It's a lifestyle. It's the lifestyle of what I need to do to look after people, which includes things like listening, learning how to give and receive feedback, learning how to have effective confrontations, how to discipline when necessary in a way that's constructive, roam the halls, get to know people, learning what it means to ask somebody questions. How do you ask questions? You know, like, some people are naturally good at being curious about other human beings, and some people are uncomfortable because they're introverts or whatever, socially awkward, but we can learn. You know, how do you learn to remember people's names? Oh, I'm bad at names. No, you've just decided you're bad at names. We can learn to be good at names so that when we walk down the hall and say, hey, Tom, oh my God, he remembers my name. It's a nice feeling. It's a lifestyle. There are many, many things we have to do and constantly work on to be a great leader, to create that environment. So there's another guy who does what I do. He's extremely well respected. He does extremely good work. I hate him. He's always been very nice to me when I've seen him professionally. I have an irrational hatred of him. And whenever his name comes up, it drives me nuts. Like, people bring it, like, we hired him, and I was like, and because I hate him, I'm really competitive with him. And so I will go online and look at my book rankings, and I'll immediately check his. And mind you, I don't look at anybody else's, just his. And if I'm ahead, I've got this like smug feeling. And if he's ahead, I get really pissed off, you know? So anyway, we had the opportunity to speak at the same event. I don't mean like me in the morning, him in the afternoon. Like, we were interviewed together on the stage. And the interviewer thought it would be fun if we introduced each other. And so I went first. And then I looked at him and I said, you make me really insecure. All of your strengths are all of my weaknesses. And when your name comes up, it makes me really uncomfortable. And he looked at me and he said, funny, I feel the same about you. The reason I had such an irrational hatred of him had nothing to do with him. It had to do with me. He's my worthy rival. His strengths revealed to me my own weaknesses. And instead of confronting and taking a hard look at myself and evaluating those weaknesses and working on those weaknesses, it was much easier to take all of that negative energy and direct it towards him. In other words, to be competitive, to want to beat him. It was a very cathartic experience. We've since become very close friends, have worked together. I no longer check his book rankings. And because we share the same cause, we can actually work together. And so what I recognized was, so often in business, we have these competitors, sometimes on our own teams, that we want to beat them. We've all had the experience where one of our colleagues got a promotion and we got upset. We got angry. We got angry at somebody else's success. Think about that for a second. Why couldn't we share in the joy? What is it about them that's being revealed in us? That's the problem. And so having worthy rivals, instead of competitors are other players we set out to beat. But the problem with that is there's no finish line. And so if we're obsessed with beating the other company, then at some point, sure, you're ahead in whatever metric you chose. Until when, right? At what expense, at what cost? That's not sustainable. But rather, the other players inside our industry, outside our industry, on our own teams, we can choose our own worthy rivals. Their strengths reveal to us our weaknesses, and by having our weaknesses revealed to us, it means we have the opportunity to grow and improve. And the infinite game, at its core, is basically a game of constant improvement. And so our worthy rivals reveal to us our weaknesses and our opportunities to improve.
There you are, folks. Well, let us start recording again and have some thoughts. Thoughts, folks. Whoops, let me try and start that again because I'm in the wrong place, not where I wanted to be.
We are
Go away. I forgot to rejig my cursor. And I forgot to move that as well. So just bear with me 1 second whilst I do my bit of housekeeping, which just saves me enormous angst later on. Okay, that's done that. End of Simon. End of Simon. Okay. Gentlemen, your thoughts. Ted, you chose this piece, so what do you take out of this most?
Aren't there some lovely lessons in there? I think there's some lovely lessons, particularly that line where he said that his competitor, that all of his strengths were all of Simon's weaknesses. And how often do we see that ourselves in lots of walks of life, both in our business, in our academic, and even in our leisure time. Paul, if we were having a game of golf as competitors, you know, you'd be saying, Jesus, if I could do what you could do, and we could do what, if we could both do the same, what the other fella does, we'd be great golfers. If I could put as well as you, and if you could drive it as far as I could drive it. And what Simon Sinek says here, I think, is very deep, and it takes a lot of understanding and listening, and you might have to even re-listen to it to really get the full value of the point he's making. And The Infinite Game, that's a book that you should invest in. What do you think, Paul, of what he had to say?
Well, I stopped listening halfway through. And the reason I stopped listening halfway through is because I thought it was so good. Mm. I was blown away by the beginning of it because I started to apply everything he was saying to Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And I began to apply it to clubs and the distinguished club program.
Yeah.
And I began, first of all, when he said that, look, who says you have to achieve this goal this year at this time? You will achieve it. And he was encouraging people to keep going and not to regard, for example, the achievement of, let's say, the status of distinguished, and the club next door doesn't have it.
You're bang on, yeah.
Them. And I started thinking about the value of, and he made various points about leadership, mm-hmm. and how leadership is caring for the people who are, if I remember rightly, it's the people who are going to achieve the goals, let's say.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I can't remember.
The definition of what leadership is.
Taking care of those in our charge. And I thought, what kind of leadership is there in Toastmasters? And it's certainly whatever about being in charge, area directors, club presidents, taking care of those in our charge. Yep. They've been privileged to be given the opportunity to be called a leader.
Yes.
And in that sense, so I began and I thought after this, hang on, we've got a club officer training happening in a week's time or something like that. Could I take a slice out of this? And 2 minutes of it, not.
Yeah.
I thought this is all too much. There's too much goodies in it. So sorry, Ted, that is the answer to...
No, you're bang on, Paul. I think you got a great grasp, even though you might have zoned out after half. And as you said, you're bang on. That's why I was making the point before you came in there that it's important that people re-listen to it and listen to it again to really get...
Yes, I agree.
And the impact of what he's saying. Mara, the one thing I did think, did it end very abruptly or something?
It did a bit, but that's how it is. That's the recording that was made.
Or was it okay?
Yeah,
thanks?
No. I sort of lost track of it, and I'm going to have to listen to it again and probably 2 or 3 times to get the full import of it. I picked up one very important thing, though, what he said about targets. And this is something I've held very much in my mind. That is that a target is not something to be to knock yourself for failing to achieve, but a target is merely something. It's a desire to get there, and it's something that you can aim for, and you may never actually achieve it. But if you say, "Oh well, I couldn't achieve that target, so I'm going to lower the bar to a target that I know I can achieve," then you're not stretching yourself and you're not gaining from it. But anyway, folks, we've run out of time on this segment, so let's call it to a close now.
Okay, yeah, you're bang on too, Mario. Grasped exactly what he was saying there too, yeah.
We'll ask you to come back tomorrow to listen to Paul, who's going to explain exactly what the words TLI mean. See you tomorrow. Okay.
Well, you're in Lynch, are you?
We have a time.
Are you? I thought that too. Yeah.
I've been here since last. I forget what day. Certainly Friday.
Oh, very nice. What's the weather like up there? Nice.
Pardon?
What's the weather like?
Well, it began very badly. Then there were 2 wonderful days. Then there was a bad day.
But that's this summer. That's exactly what's happening this summer. It's been on, off, on, off, on, off.
Today is better than yesterday. Yesterday wasn't too bad, although it wasn't good. And the day before was awful.
Oh, sure. Every day is a nice day. I needn't tell you that.
Why do I always leave you on screen, Ted? Why do I always leave you on screen when everybody else is talking? It's bad production control. Actually, when we do these shows, I do need somebody else who's sitting there pressing the buttons as we talk.
Well, that's because, Maura, we are, and this is meant as a compliment, we are an amateur outfit.
Yeah.
A group of volunteers. We are not.
Yeah, but you see, Paul, I have grandeurs of, no, what is it? Delusions. No.
Paul, you just reminded me of who you remind me of, if you know what I mean. The hairstyle, actually, I was always wondering who exactly do you remind me of. It just shot into my brain there. Seamus Heaney.
Seamus Heaney.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready?
I'll take the hair, Ted. At least it's a step towards.
Well, you have his type of intellect as well, I think.
Well, it would be an ability. If I could get to the point where I could write even one poem that was as good as his worst poem, I'd be happy enough.
Okay, on that promising note, target. It's a target. It's a target, Paul. How about that?
No, it was meant as a compliment, both to Seamus and to Paul.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to Paul's segment, and I will count you. No, I will call you. I will bring you in, Paul. Welcome to part 3 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. Let me just remind you of our email address, which is info@irishtalkers.com. Our website, of course, is irishtalkers.com, but you can find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers, and do get in touch with us there or by email. It's time now. I'm going to do what Paul does and say, well, this is the best part of the week. Not my segment, because my segment is really awfully boring because it's only interesting for people who want to speak. But Paul is the one who talks about leadership. And leadership, folks, is very important in any walk of life, and especially if you want to become a good speaker. Paul, over to you. TLI, what is it?
Listeners, imagine you wake up one morning and you have slept fine, but you wake up and you discover everybody else is speaking a different language. You suddenly find yourself in a world where the old language that you were comfortable with and that helped you to express what you wanted to express has been swept aside by this new fancy stuff. And you don't know where this new fancy stuff came from. You don't know what it means. And the next thing you discover is there are all these people walking around talking about TLI. If I hear one more person talking about TLI, I'm going to tear out the remainder of my hair. I'm driven demented by TLI. First of all, it's not in the dictionary. It is not a word in the English language. So anybody who's a grammarian standing up at a Toastmasters meeting and hears somebody saying TLI, crack on them. Give them the feedback that that is not a proper word. Ask them to speak English. TLI. I hadn't a clue what it was that Wednesday morning. It was raining outside. Well, it began raining in my brain. Because suddenly this thing that seemed to come across the Atlantic, to be honest, people were talking about, we're going to have a TLI. So what did I do? I went to Google and I put in TLI. That didn't get me anywhere. I put in Toastmasters Leadership Institute because I found out that's what it stands for. And I found out loads and loads of entries, all sorts of people talking about we're going to have a TLI, a Toastmasters Leadership Institute. And I thought, well, then I put into Google, who invented the term Toastmasters Leadership Institute? Because I was very optimistic. I thought, hey, there'll be a website. There'll be a Toastmasters website, or else there'll be a page on the Toastmasters International website, or maybe District 71 will have it. Well, listeners, let me save you a search. There is absolutely nothing on the internet that will tell you when the term Toastmasters Leadership Institute was first used. And having discovered that, check it out if you don't believe me, I went to the Toastmasters International Facebook group, one of the most useful places. And I put up a question this morning. And the question I put up this morning runs as follows. I was really hoping that I would get some class of an answer to this. And what was the question? The question, I better paraphrase it. I said, do any of you know who invented the term Toastmasters Leadership Institute, TLI? When was it first used? When was it first adopted? And nobody so far. 6 hours later. This is very unusual. So it's a conspiracy. Some group of people got together. They decided they didn't want to be named. I haven't been through the board minutes. So what is TLI? Nobody in Ireland knew what TLI was. Nobody in Cork knew what it was. Nobody in my division knew what it was. Nobody in Blarney knew what it was, except we knew it had a name. And it was connected with club officer training. Now, I have found out what it is. So I'm not going to leave you frustrated by the same thing I have been frustrated by, because let me say, I'm going to make an assumption that every listener here knows what club officer training is. A goodly proportion of you will have been to club officer training. You're an officer in a club. You get 2 batches of training every year. Used to be in a room, and now it's online. And it'll stay online for a while longer. But that we're not talking about how long. The key thing is that who goes to it? Traditionally, club officers. You've got to be a sergeant at arms, you've got to be a secretary, you've got to be a treasurer, and you've got to have the exalted position of club president and everybody in between. Fantastic. And it's a great idea. Voluntary organization, you can't ask people to come to too much training, so you have 2 sessions a year. Terrific. Now, what on earth is the difference between this Toastmasters Leadership Institute and club officer training? I'd have a wager that hardly anyone could give a decent answer to that question, because the most important difference between the two is that every single member of Toastmasters International is entitled to attend a Toastmasters Leadership Institute event. It's not just for club officers. And if it's called Toastmasters Leadership Institute, it has to be open to every member. You can't, it's against the culture, the ethos of this thing that has got 3 letters in its title. Everyone has to be welcome. Secondly, in the old days, if you like, in the traditional club officer training, there's a program offered, and then one breakout session where all the presidents get together, and you have role sessions, which are very good. And I remember them being the best part. But all the other parts of the training are compulsory. You get one session where you can just go off with people, and all the rest are, a session on pathways. Could be terrific sessions, but you ain't got a choice. With Toastmasters Leadership Institute, you're offered a menu. You can decide, I'm going to go to how to retain club members, or I'd like to go how to gain new members for the club, or I'd like to go to moments of truth, or I'd like to go to speech contests, club speech contests, anything you like. There's a whole menu, a massive suggested list. And the Toastmasters Leadership Institute process is based around the idea that the people who go to the events will be given a menu. There'll be self-directed learning. They won't have somebody else's ideas of what is good for them. They'll be able to choose. Those, for me, are the two key differences between club officer training and Toastmasters Leadership Institute. Now, I'm used to going to conferences from, 30 years ago, where you had, some plenary sessions and everybody would attend those. And then you had 4, 5, 20 alternative sessions you could then go to, in some cases for the rest of the day. So you got choices. It happens at medical conferences. It's a tried and tested way. And, sometimes people go to these events together and they say, hey, Joe, you go to that one, I'll go to this one, and we'll talk afterwards about what it was. And you could have 3 or 4 people go from the same Toastmasters club to a Toastmasters Leadership Institute event, all go to different electives and all come back to their club. And then you could have a table topic session back in the club in which each of these people is called up to say, tell us what you gained from this. And the next person comes up this. So it could be straight table topics. Perfect way of reporting back to your club. Now, there's all sorts of other things. You could bring it all back to the club committee, discuss it. But so look, I'm sorry, that's a bit like a clutch phrase, isn't it, Moira? That thing of look. But it's really a way of saying, I'm coming to the end now, and I want to say my main point, which is that we have decided to have excuse me, I'm being a little distracted by a phone call which I'm not able to take. Excuse me. We have decided in District 71 that the event that took place on the 4th of July was a Toastmasters Leadership Institute / Club Officer Training event. And that because it might confuse people, we'll call all the other ones, even ones that are used with the ethos of Toastmasters Leadership Institute, we'll call them all Club Officer Training. So there really isn't any need, listeners, for you to go being concerned about the difference. All I can say is that the approach, which invites all members to come to more trainings if they'd like to come, is terrific, isn't it? And the other thing is trainings and education and training events where you have a choice about what you want to go to. They're fabulous too. They fit in with the Pathways approach. Thank you for listening. Ted, what do you think?
I'm a little bit confused still, Paul, to be honest. I can see the distinction you make between the July 4th offering from Toastmasters and the regular club officer training as we know it. But why call it something else when we're going there for a day's training?
Well, the Toastmasters Leadership Institute idea comes from a place that I cannot identify, but it does have a feature which traditional club officer training has never had.
Okay, yeah.
A feature of being open and a feature of having electives.
Okay.
But in order to avoid confusing people, we've decided in our district not to use the term Toastmasters Leadership Institute. But as far as I know, many of the club officer trainings are open to members of Toastmasters who are not yet club officers.
Well, that's true. That is true, yeah. And that has always been the case where you would have assistant club officers or people who are just new to Toastmasters but would like to get the training just to get a flavour of what it's like. So well done for bringing that to our notice, Paul. Thanks.
And on that note, we'll close this section. Thank you, Paul. That was very interesting. And we'll see you again tomorrow when I'm going to be talking about, well, sound. Look forward to that.
Sorry, in the middle of that, my distraction was that my wife rang me and the
Yeah,
school went off.
I've made a note of that to edit that out.
What was the bell I heard going off? Was that your own timer, Paul, or was that you, Mara?
I don't know. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
It definitely wasn't me.
No, it wasn't me either.
I thought it was you, Ted.
Unless it was one of our phones or something.
Well, it certainly didn't come from me. Well, no, I'm pretty sure it didn't come from me.
Just thinking, did it come from my phone? So some kind of a message coming through.
No, I'm not sure what's happening, but the stream has gone to 0. It's just not working. We're just buffering and buffering and buffering.
Okay.
I don't know why. We did have 7 people watching, but now we're down to 1 plus me. Yeah, the stream is not working at all. It's just buffering. But I've got excellent internet, so there's no reason why. So, apologies to anybody who's still listening.
What I noticed too, Mara, sometimes, Paul, your sound there wasn't great. Sometimes
Everybody's gone.
Bit of distortion. Did you get that, Mara?
No, I heard fine.
I can hear this say sometimes there's a little bit of distortion on Paul's.
Yeah.
Coming.
Okay.
Was I speaking too loudly?
No, it wasn't you at all. I think it was just the way it's been picked up by the internet or something.
Yeah, I think it was you, Ted. You're listening rather than Ted and Paul's.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks like
my internet. The internet here actually is superb.
Yeah.
Practically, when I turn something on, it is instant. It's better than it is at home.
Yeah. Well, the stream is now back up. Now we've lost all our listeners, all our watchers. We've lost a lot. We had 7 people watching.
It was down, Mara. There was too many people watching us.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever had as many as 7 watching at one time.
Oh, geez, that would definitely drag the power out of us.
Ted, I love what you've put down, that TLI stands for Tender Loving Instruction.
Yeah, I hope you like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, shall we press on?
That encapsulates what you were telling us anyway.
That would be a good title for an article in the Toastmaster magazine.
Yeah.
Tender Loving Instruction.
Yeah.
Here's that bell again. Oh, did you hear it?
Oh, that could be me.
It definitely wasn't mine.
Well, yeah.
You know what? It coincided with a message being flashed on my laptop screen.
Then it's you. Then it's your notifications bell.
I didn't think I had any notifications turned on for anything.
Well, you have.
Well,
the Russians are watching you, Paul.
Well, I'm about to see if I can get rid of. I don't want any notifications.
It might be one from the European lottery to say you're 50 million better off. don't tell anyone.
Apparently, there was a BBC program about people who had won the lottery.
Yeah.
And a follow-up thing. And apparently, a lot of them had terrible lives since.
Yeah. Sure, we have an example of that down in Cove, the fellow who won it. Remember that fella?
What happened to him?
Well, he went away and started spending the money, but he didn't. He won 3 or 4 million, but he didn't hang on to it very long. He splurged on some kind of building down there, and he went all grandiose with it. And
Wine, Women and Song.
His 3 millions didn't last long, anyhow.
Well, 3 million these days is nothing. I mean, yeah, it would vanish into puff of thin air.
Would you go through it in 2 or 3 years, Mara?
Yeah, absolutely. Mind you, see, I'd give most of it away. But then,
well, that's the right thing to do with it, because you'll never be able to spend the kind of money that the fellow up in Dublin or whoever it was won the other night on the internet. 50 million, was it?
Yeah. Well, I think what I would do is I'd say, well, I'm going to live for another, say, 20 years, and I'd take the 3 million, divide by 20, So that's 300,000. That's 150,000 a year. Yeah, I could live on that comfortably.
Yeah.
Without worry.
What happens then if you live for 40 years?
Then I'm in trouble.
Exactly. You won't have enough to buy your final resting place.
Yeah, indeed. Right, should we press on? Who's bringing us in?
Yeah.
Paul,
Paul usually brings you in, Myra.
Yeah.
He likes to get to say this is the most interesting
He does.
part of the show. Off you go, Paul.
3, 2, 1, go.
Listeners, we have a tremendous treat for you today. We have the very best segment of the entire show. And this is going to give you an opportunity to listen to some wonderful sound. So I'm going to hand you over to Moira O'Brien, who is going to sound the call to arms. Moira.
As usual, Paul, you're setting me up for a fall. I'm not sure that I'm going to live up to your expectations quite so much today, because this, as always, is going to be somewhat of a table topic. Now, what am I talking about today? Sound. There's the sound of silence, the absence of sound. Isn't it wonderful? There is no sound except my voice. And that, folks, is what we are looking for. Sorry, my phone was ringing then. It was a no caller ID, so bye-bye. And I bet you it's the hospital trying to get hold of me.
My goodness, I thought that was the sound of an opera singer.
Pedro, will you get off? Phone call. Sorry, I'm just making a note to edit this out. Oh, hold on, I better take this. Hello?
Hi, this is Adam from iConnect in Wilton.
Hello, yes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So I have a phone here belonging to Moira.
That's me, that's mine, yes.
Yeah, so I just need you to turn off the Find My iPhone before I can actually start any repairs or diagnosis.
I thought we did that.
Are you sure?
Well, we certainly tried. Just bear with me and I shall see if I can do it.
Yeah, I can talk you through on the phone.
Well, it was...
The serial number popped up again that it was still active. So.
Okay, but I deleted one item from my list, which it seemed to be a duplication, but obviously it was the wrong one. What's the website I go to again?
iCloud.
iCloud, that's it, yeah. For some reason or other, I forget that. Completely.
It's not a very important website.
No, indeed. Sorry about that, folks. That was sort of rather important for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken it. But and that involved some machinations which didn't come to anything, unfortunately. It was a bit of a pain. We've probably lost all our viewers, have we? Let's close that down. Live dashboard. Do we have anybody watching us? Oh, we do. Okay. Where were we? Oh, God, it's in my segment, isn't it? Which is, I haven't the faintest idea where I was. I think I was listening to silence. Right, if you don't mind, I'm going to replay.
Moira, why don't you play it back and pick it up wherever you feel is right?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. There's the sound of silence, the absence of sound. Isn't it wonderful? There is no sound except my voice. And that, folks, is what... Okay. And that gives me the points where the phone call came in. And I can delete that. Don't need that anymore. And that, folks, is what we're aiming to achieve. The absence of all sound except the sound of our voice. Okay, let's talk about two different circumstances. The one is the online situation and the other is the on-site situation. In the one, we have almost complete control over our environment, but in the other, we may have sounds which we cannot control. Now, there's a lot of similarity between the two situations in terms of external sound. And when I say external sound, I'm talking about unwanted noises that are not coming from the place, the room where you're actually speaking. It could be, for example, an air conditioning unit. That's, I know in hotels that I've been in, can be a little bit of an annoyance and a distraction because it does have a certain amount of noise, but you can go and turn it off. There's another hotel where I've given speeches where the room is next door to a kitchen area, and we hear the clinking of glasses and cutlery all the time in the background, which I can tell you is exceptionally irritating and difficult to be able to give a speech and to listen to the speech. And let's put this in the right context. You are important, but you're not as important as the audience. And the experience that the audience is going to get of your speech is the most important thing. So sound is important. Just imagine now, let's say you are watching a video on YouTube and it's really beautiful. The visuals are stunning, but the sound is... Do you enjoy watching that video? Answer? No. Let's turn it around. The visuals you're watching are a bit boring and a bit naff and not particularly interesting, but the sound is superb, and the quality of the speech, the actual words that are being spoken, that's stuff you really want to listen to. You can make excuses for the lack of video because you're getting what you need from the audio and the quality of the audio. So that puts audio into perspective. In my opinion, audio is the most important thing of all the very many important things, but it is the top of the list of things of importance in your speaking. Okay, we've talked about background sounds. There are some background sounds that are going to be within your ability to control. If they are, and if you can control them, get rid of them. Get rid of them, because they will be a distraction, and it will make it more difficult for your audience to follow you without losing words, losing interest, etc. Now, noises, background noises that are outside of your control, that's more difficult. You can't necessarily get up and go into a different room, because you'll be talking to nobody, because your audience is in the other room. That sounds silly, but you get the point. You can't do much about that, except maybe to try to overcome that by talking maybe a little bit louder, raising your voice. At the end of the day, you have got to get your voice heard by everybody in the room, and that includes the person right at the back of the room. Now, if you're an actor, you know how to do this, because you are able to project your voice and throw the voice to the back of the room. But your average speaker doesn't necessarily have the capability of doing that. So the only way to get around that, I guess, is to increase the volume of your projection, of your voice. Let's talk a little bit about the online situation. Now here, I would hope that we have a much greater degree of control over our environment. For example, I am sitting in my office come living room come kitchen. It's not the best location, and if I was to move away from the microphone too far, the audio would not be terribly good. So I'm talking to you very close to the microphone, but there are certain things that I have which I have to pay attention to. For example, I have a speaker. So I could actually take my headphones off and I would be able to listen to Ted and Paul when I'm away from the camera. But if I was to turn that speaker up, can you now hear there's some feedback going on? The speaker, or should I say the microphone, is picking up a certain amount of sound from the speaker. I'll turn it down now because it's really annoying. It's called feedback. There's a feedback loop. The speaker is going into the microphone, which is going to the speaker, going to the microphone, and so on and so on and so on. So that's something that you always want to avoid. But because I'm in a room which is probably quite boomy, by going very close to the microphone and turning the gain on the microphone down a little bit, that is the input volume that the microphone is going to hear, I'm avoiding getting too much of that boom. Now, I can tell you, folks, that the best place for you to do online audio is actually your bedroom. Think about it. You've probably got a carpet on the bedroom floor. You've got bedclothes on the bed. You've probably got curtains on the window. And all of these absorb sound. They don't reflect sound. And what makes a problem with sounding, what's the word for it? It's sort of the boomy, echoey sound, is because you have reflective surfaces reflecting the sound back to your microphone as you speak. And because sound travels at a relatively slow speed, it's 640 miles per hour, something like that. You don't have to go very far for there to be a significant, a noticeable difference in sound. And that noticeable difference only needs to be a matter of a few feet away, and it becomes noticeable. Right, what other sounds are there that we may not have full control of in our own homes? Well, it could be our significant other who happens to come in, or it could be a child, or it could be children playing outside, as we had earlier on in this broadcast, in this podcast, where the word sounds of children playing. So we made an effort there to remove that external sound by closing doors, closing windows, and it was successful. It's amazing that just the closing of a window can completely deaden that external sound. Ted, I wish you stopped doing that. You're completely putting me off. Listeners or viewers on YouTube, I didn't have Ted on screen, so you couldn't see what he was doing, but he was really putting me off because he's feeling very hot having closed his window. Right, we'll edit that out of the podcast and we'll go back to where we were. So, where were we now? You can avoid your unwanted house sounds by making sure that you advise your significant other and your children that you are broadcasting or you are podcasting, and therefore now you must be allowed to be kept in peace and quiet. And that is important.
Moira,
yes, Paul.
Request for advice.
Absolutely.
How do you request your cat to stop meowing during a speech online?
That's very easy. You put him outside, or her in my case, and actually she's asleep behind me. You put her outside and you close the door and the cat flap. And no, Ted, you don't get your gun out and fire. How did I put you on screen, Ted, and not me?
Is it okay to do this during the speech online when the cat wanders into the room?
Absolutely, Ted. It is mandatory so to do. Well, are there any other sensible comments now on what I've just said? Because we have reached the end of the segment.
Can I have another piece of advice?
So long as it's a serious one and not a frivolous one.
Oh, well, I have a dog. And I have had the experience of my dog coming in while I've been making a speech. And I've had to make a decision, Moira, between engaging with the audience and allowing the dog to lick my face or distracting myself from the audience and putting the dog away. Which would you advise me to do?
Well, Paul, for a start, I would say that forget about the audio. Your comment does not come into the audio, it comes into the visual section, and in visually that would be exceedingly distracting, and therefore should be dealt with immediately by turning your camera off so that your audience is not being distracted visually, and arranging for the dog to be removed from your presence.
And one final supplementary as an addendum to the conversation. Would you advise members in clubs to hold speeches and evaluations with all cameras off so that the audience can pay attention to the sound rather than being distracted by the visuals?
That is actually a very good question, Paul, and I would treat it with the seriousness which it deserves. Yes and no.
Thank you. Next week is very good to hear, to have you listen to us. The profundity of that conclusion is the best way of ending this week's. Thank you very much, Moira O'Brien, for sending us home with a great call to action, to Ted Melanphy for appreciating it so much, and for Paul O'Mahony for being foolish enough to have asked that question.
Bye, folks. See you next week.
We have a very special guest with us next week.
Bye for now.
I couldn't resist that.
I
couldn't resist some of the action shots there, lads.
Well, I know you're completely putting me off my stream. Sorry,
What struck me actually was that the topic was supposed to be about sound and mine.
I know.
So I was doing my best to provide the mine.